stakeholders in the Ogoni land of Rivers State have expressed optimism over the planned resumption of oil exploration in the area. In January, President Bola Tinubu hosted a delegation of Ogoni leaders and stakeholders at the presidential villa, Aso Rock, to discuss restarting oil operations in the region 32 years after Shell was forced to quit due to ceaseless protests by the people. Ahead of the planned resumption of oil exploration activities in Ogoni land, a group, the Conscience of Ogoni People, has called on President Bola Tinubu to set up a joint military task force to secure government assets, oil facilities, and private sector investments in the area. Joining us now on this show to discuss the planned resumption of oil exploration in Ogoni land is Senator Birabi, former Senator, Federal Republic of Nigeria, and founding chairman of Kabari Ogoni. He also touched on the federal government's posthumous awards to the Ogoni 9 and how people in the region have received it. Good morning, Senator Birabi, and thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Good morning, Ruben.
Yes, Senator. Thank you very much. Well, two things. One, Shell returning to Ogoni land after 32 years. If you can take us through all of that, how we got to this point, the compensation, the oil spillage, the role of Shell in Ogoni land, and is there any guarantee that there will be peace and better community relations this time around? The second question will have to do with the recognition, the amnesty, the pardon for the Ogoni 9 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and then including the Ogoni 9 in the National Honors list. How is the community receiving that? How symbolic or significant do you think that is?
Well, thank you very much. You know, I've been here before. The last time we went to see the president, I raised some issues about the conduct of the committee. And I reiterated the fact that Ogonis want oil production to resume for economic and political reasons. And, but the problem has been the approach of government. And I want to put it very clearly, the reason that there has been this problem is that the government assumes that there are no people in Ogoni, and so they can use who they like in Ogoni to secure Ogoni buy-in. So they handpick who they like and expect whoever they picked to be able to get the people to welcome government. Ogonis are very independent-minded people, and but they are very fearless too. And what has happened in the last 32 years or so should let everybody know that Ogonis are not afraid of anybody. But they are also not easy to railroad. They are not slaves. You know, so what government, every succeeding government has tried to, you know, take for example, you just come, you pick somebody who was your driver some time back, and then you ask him now to go and call a meeting of the chiefs in his village, you know, because that's the person you know. No, Ogoni has a history. Our place has been very organized. If we were not organized, we wouldn't be where we are today. You were trying to introduce me. I was that the chairman of Kabari. Please, for your information, I was the chairman of Kagote, and MOSOP was formed in my house. And I decided, I conducted the elections. The person who took over MOSOP as a propaganda machine was only appointed or elected publicity secretary for the fact that he was a media guru. Very intelligent guy. He's older than me, no doubt about that. But, you know, this is not about age, it's about tradition, it's about pedigree, it's about where you come from. It is the refusal of government to recognize that every institution, every community has got its roots and foundation. That's what's keeping us where we are today. So they pick who they want and expect him to do what they want them to do, when even the person cannot sleep in his village without security, without government security. So that's the problem. We are ready for oil resumption. We need it. But it cannot be done exactly the same way they were doing it 60 years ago, or since 1958 today. How many years? That's 60-some years ago. It's not possible. Over time, Ogoni has grown. And I said it before, by the time Shell came into Ogoni, there was only one university graduate from Ogoni. That was my father, though. Today, every Ogoni family has a lawyer. We can't count the number of engineers and petroleum engineers or chemical engineers in Ogoni. So you don't expect the same way you treated us 6, 7, or 8 years ago to be treated to hold today. It's not possible. The team that was selected to go and see the president, I wasn't even a member of the team. Because I'd had some previous relationship with Nuhu Ribadu, he was the one who put my name there. And I came, and the team that they put together wouldn't even want to hear. Not a single one of these fellows there in that group was present when we formed MOSOP. Not one of them. So they don't even know why they formed MOSOP. So how do you solve a problem you don't understand? But because I'm not ready, because I'm not that slavish to just follow whatever is said without asking questions, then they make sure that every discussion about Ogoni, I'm excluded. Unfortunately, I'm not worried about trying. I can't cry more than the bereaved. I am not Ogoni. I'm an Ogoni son. So was my father, so was my grandfather. But if this is what they want, so be it. One thing I can say for sure is that oil resumption can happen in Ogoni. Yes.
Okay, Senator.
I'm listening.
Senator, quickly. How about the recognition of the Ogoni 9 by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the pardon for the Ogoni 9?
I think that the president was being misled and misadvised. What Ogoni needs is not recognition of killers. The event that
not recognition of killers, not recognition of killers, recognition of martyrs.
Yes.
Ken Saro-Wiwa was not a killer.
The martyr? The person who killed the elders is a martyr? No. It depends.
Are you saying Ken Saro-Wiwa was a killer?
It depends on where you're coming from. Can I put this in? Depends on where you're coming from. The event that led to this crisis, I just happened to be here today because God wanted me to be here. I simply did not get there in time enough. I was like 30 minutes late. That's why I'm still here. And this happened in our homeland at 12 noon in the afternoon. And the people who did the killing, the mob did not wear masks. So they were all known and seen by our people, and they were no strangers. So for you to wake up and say they are martyrs, martyrs are people who fought for the people and died for the cause. What was the cause they fought and died for? That's the question. The same cause that we established MOSOP for, or the same cause that these people were fighting for, but simply because somebody wanted to be the emperor. He had found some public acclaim through propaganda. I know there are positive and negative propaganda. Propaganda is just raising awareness for a particular cause. In this case, what was the cause? The people who were killed, what were they doing against the Ogoni people? What did they do against the Ogoni people? You just point a finger and you capitalize on the poverty of the people and tell them that all the monies that were going to Ogoni, that would have come to Ogoni, have been taken by these people. So unless, for me particularly, he called a meeting in my village and got all the youth, the young men in my village, and said, unless and until the Birabi is no longer there, nobody in this village can make progress. In the 50s, we were dancing, we were singing Birabi. In the 60s, we were singing Birabi. In the 70s, if his minister is Birabi's son, House of Reps is Birabi's son, Senator is Birabi's son. If they call their own father's name one day, what will happen?
Senator Birabi.
What do you expect the young men to do?
Okay, Senator Birabi.
He didn't tell them to kill me, but that's enough.
Senator Birabi, I want to make sure we're clear here. So are you saying that the persecution and the killing of the Ogoni 9 was justified? Is that what you're saying?
Is that what I'm saying? I asked the question, what did those... Okay, you call it persecution? That was not persecution. They were properly accused because they were seen and known. The only person that I tried to bargain for, and I did my best, but it didn't work, was Saro-Wiwa himself. Because I said he was not physically present at the scene of murder. So at best, he could be charged for manslaughter or for instigating the murder. But even despite that, I reached out to the Emir of Kano to try and see whether he can prevail on Abacha to at least exclude him. And it didn't work. Reasons behind that is a detail for another day, you know. So the people who were accused, there may be some one or two innocent people because most of the people who actually did the killing, some of them ran away. Some of the people who supervised the killing are the ones who are receiving national award today. So propaganda could be positive or negative.
Senator Birabi,
when it works positively, it's development. When it's negative, it ruins a place. 33 years ago, it has not made any progress. In fact, we have degenerated.
And Senator Birabi, if you hear me, national awards posthumously,
yes,
and also they have gotten a presidential pardon. And you know the meaning of a presidential pardon. So they've been pardoned for any allegations you are making now against them. The Ogoni 9 also got a presidential pardon. Let us underline a pardon. Secondly, I want you to tell, hang on a minute, please. I want you to tell, and we know we are going to have a right of rebuttal because some other people present in the Ogoni story will come back and tell their own side of the story. Tell your own side of the story on what you claim led to the killing of those elders.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Can I tell you, okay, I hope we have time.
Go ahead, sir.
It was purely an ego war. And because I was an insider, I know. In 1977 or 1960, when River State was created, Saro-Wiwa was appointed Commissioner for Education. And by virtue of the River State policy at the time, because manpower was a major serious problem in River State, River State gave a free scholarship to all River citizens. And because he was Commissioner for Education, he oversaw that scholarship scheme. And a lot of Ogoni people, young men, got scholarship to go abroad, except one, yours truly. Everybody traveled abroad, and so he was a very popular person by happenstance that he happened to be the Commissioner for Education. And all of us accepted it. Even me was more or less like, his word, because I spent my holidays, all my holidays in his house. Now, he quarreled with all the Ogoni elders to the extent that not one of them would greet him. In 1977, when they were doing the Constitutional Conference, he now came out and wanted to go to the Constitutional Conference. And the elders voted against him. He lost the election to some peripheral Ogoni person from Eleme, and that got him in a very bad mood. Of course, then he had left the government, and he just went on his own business. Succeeded very much as a businessman. He's in fact, he's an erudite writer and author and playwright. We all know that. And then he went on. 1991, I was elected as president of Kagote. He was not a member of Kagote. But because of my personal relationship with him, I insisted unless they allow him to join Kagote, I will not accept the presidency. And I brought him into Kagote because I would already discussed talking about what to do about Ogoni oil. I remember the last interview I had with you people, I told you that the Mossop team was founded on the situation in Oloibri, that we did not want Ogoni to look like Oloibri when our oil dried up. So we had insisted that unless they industrialized Ogoni with our raw material, oil should stop. That was the basic understanding. And because of that, I invited him to Kagote. And then used the Kagote, my position as president of Kagote, to now form Mossop, which the coinage was by him. But I formed the Mossop and got everybody else to buy into it. His position was publicity secretary. But somehow he convinced me that publicity secretary didn't give him enough clout to be able to discuss and talk Ogoni, that I should remain in his position as spokesman. I took it up and called a meeting of Kagote, and we passed that resolution. No sooner than he became spokesman, the trouble broke out again. I went in the Senate. I was in the Senate as a minority leader in the Senate when the June 12 election came. He, on his own, unilaterally decided Ogoni was not going to go into election. I didn't know that he had already formed a gang of youths and so on, whom he indoctrinated. They called them NICOP. And on June 12, I was nearly stabbed in my house. That's my pajamas still carries the blood today. I have it in my house here. And then from that June 12 and that crisis that broke out, Ogoni was no longer the same. We now had a group of the elders who were the elders in Ogoni who brought him in and who gave him that position. He labeled all of us vultures. In my own case, he came out and collected the youths in my village and told them what I said, that so long as I'm still around, nobody will hear their names in this village. That it's only Birabi to be worshipping. And he did that all over the place. And the coup happened. Abacha took over. In that state of discord that we were, he came around and said he wanted to go and represent Ogoni at the Constitutional Conference in 1995. And that's where the trouble started. We said, you cannot represent Ogoni when you are not in talking terms with the elders in Ogoni. What are you going there to say? So, being the political leader of the place at the time, I decided he was not going to represent us at the Constitutional Conference. That was the cause of the killing, not anything to do with oil. Because he lost the election in 1977, and now that he's become internationally acclaimed as a Ogoni spokesman and leader, he was about to lose another election. That was the cause of the killing. He instigated the boys to the extent that they were preparing for whatever it was going to happen, and I got the information. And I took the information to the...
Okay, Senator Birabi, because there's no time, hope you have your facts and your evidence, empirical facts to all of this, because we will call upon you to bring these facts someday soon, as we go over to
I'm talking to you as it happened. I'm talking to you as what happened and what is real. Okay, anybody Dr. who has a counter can come and confront me.
Dr. Bati.
Senator Birabi, well, I see that,
yes,
the personality conflicts of old, have not disappeared. It was in May 1994 that the four elders were killed, the Orage brothers, Bade, and I think one other person. It was on November 10, 1995, that the Abacha government hanged, executed Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others. It's very shocking that in 2025, the matter is still as fresh in your mind as it was in 1995. However, there's another group. They call themselves Conscience of Ogoni People, who have gone to the Federal High Court. From the Federal High Court now, they've gone to the Supreme Court to say that the Ogoni 9, Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others, should be exonerated by the Supreme Court. And that's in addition to the pardon that has been granted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it's the prerogative of the president, through the amnesty pardon committee, to grant pardon to whoever the government of Nigeria chooses. But I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to come back to this conversation about who is right, who is wrong. However, Shell, that's the big issue. is coming back to, resume exploration activities. Can you tell us, now that you say Ogoni people have graduates, they have petroleum engineers, Shell cannot operate as it used to operate, in specific terms, what are the expectations of the Ogoni people in relation to Shell and these 32 years of conflict that we want to move beyond?
Thank you very much, Ruben. I'm not against, I'm not worried about pardon granted to these people, because it doesn't change the facts. And in any case, the people who have been killed cannot rise. We can't raise them up. So what is important is how do we move forward? But we cannot move forward by denigrating innocent people who were murdered out of sheer propaganda and malice. We cannot do that. We cannot create peace in Ogoni by urinating on the graves of our elites and our elders. And then you now claim that the people who are convicted for their murders are martyrs. Martyrs, do we understand the meaning of martyr? So it's a propaganda game that has gone on for so far. But the propaganda doesn't change the reality. Propaganda can only succeed for now, but the reality remains. And the reality is what we are seeing. President has a right to grant pardon, yes. But did he, in the whole of his speech and the pardon, what is the reference? Why were they convicted in the first instance? Does it mean that the people that died and led to their conviction were not human beings? Were they not human beings? How unfair can anybody be? Nobody is asking that question about
Senator, I ask you about Shell's return. What are the expectations of the Ogoni people? Please, in less than a minute.
In less than a minute, the expectation of Ogoni people is simple. You cannot return to Ogoni and operate the same way you operated since 1958. There are things that you can do, and in fact, the man who is leading this whole facade, the NSA, Alhaji Nuhu Ribadu, he knows, because I've had a conversation with him. He knows what to do. He knows the expectation of Ogoni people, but he doesn't want to go there because he's listening to his group of friends who are working with him. And I don't have a problem with it. They can do whatever they like. I've lived my good life in Ogoni, and the only thing is that my children don't have a home to return to anymore, because if this goes on.
Okay, but you will expect Shell to pay more attention to community relations, to patronize elders, to take care of the youths. Wouldn't that be part of the expectation?
Not at all. Not at all. It's not an individual thing or any elder. What is driving the process now is how much elders can get. They're capitalizing on the poverty rate of Ogoni people. It's not an elder thing. It's not attention to any. There are holistic things that should be done. And if it is not done, they can go ahead. I mean, government is absolute power. The government can even decide to wipe out a race and nothing will happen, because, I mean, we're seeing it all over the world. They can go ahead. But definitely, some of us are not sold on this rubbish because we are not afraid to say the truth.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator Ben Birabi, for joining us on The Morning Show.